There is a specific kind of madness that has nothing to do with losing your mind. It is the madness of wanting something with such consistency and such proximity and such complete absence of the relief that would come from simply having it, that the wanting starts to feel like its own condition, like a permanent weather system that has installed itself in a person's chest and operates continuously in the background of everything else they do and think and say, coloring the texture of their days with a want that does not have an off switch and does not respond to reason and does not diminish with time or distance or the application of any of the practical strategies that sensible people apply to. Desires that are inconvenient. This person is in that madness, specifically, completely, with both hands and no exit in sight. And the object of it, the thing they want, with this particular relentless, making them actually insane consistency, is the simplest and most intimate thing one person can want from another. They want to kiss you, not once, not in the hypothetical, maybe someday, theoretically appealing way that people sometimes want things they are comfortable keeping at a distance. Right now, in the middle of whatever they are doing right now, in the specific physical, cannot be adequately substituted way of a want that lives in the body rather than the mind, and therefore cannot be reasoned with from the mind without the body immediately overruling the reasoning. The body keeps winning this argument. They are losing their mind about it. Stay with me. Let me tell you what their days look like right now. Not the external days. Those look, from the outside, more or less functional. They are meeting their obligations, showing up where they are supposed to show up, saying the things that are required to be said in the context that require them, moving through the architecture of their ordinary life with a surface competence that would not alert anyone who did not know to look for the specific low grade distraction of someone who is operating in two places simultaneously present in the room and somewhere else entirely in the interior. The somewhere else is you. More specifically, the thought of your mouth. This is the part they have not said out loud to anyone because saying it out loud would require them to admit to the full, slightly embarrassing, entirely undignified scope of what they are dealing with, which is that they have developed a specific, detailed, involuntary relationship with the idea of kissing you that has been running in the background of their consciousness since the first moment the possibility entered. Their awareness, that moment was longer ago than you probably know. The first time they noticed your mouth not as a feature, but as a possibility, as something that exists in the world and is physically real and is therefore physically reachable, something installed itself, something that has not uninstalled since, despite their best efforts, which have been sincere if ineffective. What was it? The thing that started the specific kissing you variety of madness as opposed to the general wanting to be near you variety, because there is a distinction and the distinction matters. It was a moment of proximity, not the first proximity, not the first time they were in your physical space. By then, they were already interested in you in the broader, less specific sense of finding you compelling in multiple dimensions. But this was the moment where the broader interest crystallized into something particular, something located, something that said, not just this person, but specifically this. You were close. For reasons that were ordinary, a conversation that required less distance between you than usual, a moment of shared attention towards something that brought you both into the same small radius, a completely innocent situational accident of bodies in space. You were close enough that the distance between your face and theirs was countable in inches. And something happened in them in that moment that has not reversed. Not a thought exactly. Thoughts can be intercepted. Something more primary than thought. Something that occurred in the body before the mind could weigh in with its opinion about whether this was an appropriate thing to be experiencing and whether the timing was right and whether the feeling was reciprocated and all the other considerations that the mind tends to produce in the interest of social self regulation. The body did not wait for the mind. The want arrived first, complete, specific, already with your name on it. And then the moment passed, because moments do, and they were left standing in the ordinary space of an ordinary interaction, carrying something new that had no obvious place to go. I want to describe the specific texture of what they are living with, because this is not the clean, romantic, soft focus variety of wanting someone that lives tidily in the emotions. This has a physical reality that is getting in the way of things. They cannot have a conversation with you without being aware of your mouth, not inappropriately, not in a way that interrupts their ability to listen or to be present in the exchange, but as a permanent, low level, always running background awareness, a consciousness of proximity, of the specific distance between your face and theirs that exists in every interaction, and that their attention keeps quietly calculating even when they are also successfully tracking the conversation, the content, the appropriate response. Multitasking specifically and involuntarily between what you are saying and the fact of you, it is exhausting, not unpleasantly exhausting. There is a specific quality to this variety of exhaustion that is, if they are honest, something close to its own form of pleasure. The exhaustion of being very alive, of having something activate in you that most of your daily experience does not activate, of being in a state of heightened physical awareness that has the quality, if not the cause, of something important happening. Something important is happening. They just have not done anything about it yet. Something important is happening. They just have not done anything about it yet. The moments where they almost did. Because there have been moments, specific ones, moments where the distance was right and the silence was right, and something in the quality of what existed between you in that particular fraction of time had the texture of a threshold, of a before and after point, of a moment that was, for all practical purposes, asking to become something. They know exactly which moments I am describing. The first one they let pass because they were not sure, genuine uncertainty about whether what they were reading in the moment was accurate or wishful, whether the threshold was real or constructed by a desire that was already too large to be entirely objective. They chose caution. They let the moment pass. They told themselves that caution was the right choice and that there would be other moments, and that acting on uncertain information was how people made things complicated that did not need to be complicated. There were other moments. The second one they let pass because the moment was real, but the timing felt wrong. Something about the context, something about where both of you were in whatever the larger situation is. Something that said not here or not yet with enough conviction that they listened to it, even though listening required significant personal effort. The third one, and this is the one that is still sitting with them, the third one they let pass because they were afraid not of rejection exactly, of something larger than rejection, of the specific, permanent, cannot be undone quality of doing something real about something real, of crossing from the territory of wanting, which is uncomfortable but private and therefore controllable, into the territory of acting, which is uncomfortable and public and therefore no longer only theirs to manage. The third moment passed. They are not letting the next one pass. Let me speak to why not. Because the answer is not that they are unsure of what they feel. The feeling is one of the clearest things in their interior life right now. Not ambiguous, not requiring additional data. Present with the specific, almost inconvenient clarity of something that does not leave room for the usual self-interrogation about whether you are reading your own desires correctly. They are reading their desires correctly. The reason they have not acted is something else, something that lives not in the feeling, but in the space between feeling and action. In the specific territory where wanting becomes doing, and doing requires a different quality of decision than simply having the want, for some of you, the reason is circumstance. Something about the current configuration of your shared situation that makes a move feel premature or complicated, or requiring a conversation that has not yet happened. The feeling is clear, but the path to acting on it is not yet clear, and they have enough patience, barely, to wait for the path rather than creating one through sheer force of want. For others, the reason is vulnerability. The specific, particular, entirely understandable reluctance of someone who has realized that what they want has passed beyond the casual into the territory of mattering. And things that matter carry risk in proportion to their mattering. A casual want refused costs almost nothing. This want with this specific quality for this specific person costs considerably more to be wrong about. They do not want to be wrong about this. So they have been sitting with it, carrying it, waiting for a clarity about the path that matches the clarity they already have about the destination. And something I want to name directly, you have felt this not as a thought you have allowed yourself to fully examine as something more peripheral. A quality of their attention when they are in the same space as you that has a different texture from how people usually attend to you. Something in how they orient physically when the distance between you is small. Something in the specific quality of eye contact that lingers at a slightly different duration than eye contact between people who are simply talking. Something in the way their voice changes register in the moments when they are close. You have noticed all of this without fully examining what you are noticing. The noticing is accurate. What you are perceiving is exactly what I am describing. The specific, very present, ongoing experience of someone who wants to kiss you and is trying to behave normally about it and not fully succeeding because the want is larger than the behavior they are trying to maintain around it. Your perception has always been reliable. This case is no exception. Let me speak to the kissing itself, to what they imagine it would be like because they have imagined it multiple times. with a specificity that they find simultaneously gratifying and maddening, because the imagining is not the same as the having, and the gap between the two is where the madness lives. They imagine it would be unhurried, not tentative. There is no tentativeness in how this want exists in them, but deliberate, the specific quality of something done by someone who has been wanting this long enough to understand that when it happens, it is not to be rushed. That the moment of finally closing the distance that has been countable in inches across all these conversations and shared spaces deserves more than the desperate, impatient execution of a want that has been building too long. They think about what you would feel like, the specific warmth, the specific presence of another person's face that close, that real, that no longer at a distance of inches, that are being carefully maintained by the mutual effort of two people who are in the same space and are not kissing when at least one of them very much wants to be. They think about what it would do to the air between you, how the dynamic of every subsequent interaction would carry the knowledge of it, how something would be different afterward in a way that is irrevocable, how the kissing, when it happens, will not return things to what they were before the moment that started all of this, will instead move everything to a new place, a place that has been available as a destination since that first moment of proximity, but that has been requiring the specific courage of doing something real about something real. They are building that courage piece by piece, interaction by interaction, inch of closed distance by inch of closed distance. They imagine it would be unhurried, not tentative. There is no tentativeness in how this want exists in them, but deliberate, the specific quality of something done by someone who has been wanting this long enough to understand that when it happens, it is not to be rushed. That the moment of finally closing the distance that has been countable in inches across all these conversations and shared spaces deserves more than the desperate, impatient execution of a want that has been building too long. They think about what you would feel like, the specific warmth, the specific presence of another person's face that close, that real, that no longer at a distance of inches, that are being carefully maintained by the mutual effort of two people who are in the same space and are not kissing when at least one of them very much wants to be. They think about what it would do to the air between you, how the dynamic of every subsequent interaction would carry the knowledge of it, how something would be different afterward in a way that is irrevocable, how the kissing, when it happens, will not return things to what they were before the moment that started all of this, will instead move everything to a new place that has been available as a destination since that first moment of proximity, but that has been requiring the specific courage of doing something real about something real. They are building that courage piece by piece, interaction by interaction, inch of closed distance by inch of closed distance. Let me speak to what shared physical space feels like for them right now, because they are in it regularly. And regularly being in a space with you while carrying what they are carrying has its own texture that I want to describe precisely. Every time you are near them, the calculation restarts, not consciously. The body runs it automatically, distance in inches, angle, whether anyone is watching, whether the moment has any of the qualities of the moments they have let pass before, whether this is the moment or another one to be held in the accumulating archive of moments that were not quite it. The calculation almost always concludes, not yet. But the not yet is getting shorter. The almost has been expanding, filling more of the available space in each interaction, taking up a larger percentage of their attention, running louder in the background until it is approaching the volume where background becomes foreground and not yet becomes now. They can feel the shift happening. It is happening in the body, where these things always happen first, in the way the distance feels less acceptable than it used to, in the way the maintaining of it requires more active effort than it did in the early stages of the wanting, in the way that the ordinary, appropriate, mutually agreed upon, invisible boundary between two people who have not kissed is starting to feel less like a rule and more like an obstacle they are actively considering crossing. What does this require from you? Nothing, if you want nothing to come of it. The wanting in another person is not an obligation on your part, is not something you are required to meet or address or manage on their behalf. You are not responsible for the consequences of someone else having a feeling about you, however vivid and however specifically located. But if you have been feeling what I have been describing, the quality of their attention, the specific texture of how they are in shared space with you, the thing in the eye contact, and if that awareness has been doing something in you, something you have also not been fully examining, something that lives in your own body in a way that is not entirely neutral. If that is true, then the only thing this requires from you is honesty about it, with yourself first. Because the want you have been not fully examining, if it is there, deserves the same quality of clear eyed acknowledgement that every true thing about your interior life deserves, not performed, not decided in advance of the actual feeling, but felt. Let it be felt in its actual size before you do anything with it. It may be smaller than theirs. It may be larger. It may be exactly the same size, sitting in you with the same quietly maddening consistency, doing to your days the same thing theirs is doing to them, and you simply have not given it full permission to be what it is yet. Only you know which is true. But sitting with this reading right now, in the specific quality of attention you have brought to it, you know more than you did when you started. The madness they are in is not comfortable. Let me say that clearly because I have spent this reading describing it in ways that may have made it sound more romantic than it feels from the inside. It does not feel like a beautiful ache from inside. It feels, as the title promised, like a specific variety of insane, like having a thought that is always present and never resolved, like being perpetually on the edge of a thing without the thing happening, like the specific, slightly undignified, completely human experience of wanting something simple that is somehow not yet available to simply have. They are doing their best. Their best looks like showing up, like continuing to be in your world in whatever form they are in it, like not saying the thing before the thing can be said well, like maintaining the distance, because the distance is what is currently appropriate, even though the distance is the thing that is making them insane. They are doing the adult thing, the patient thing, The thing that respects the relationship and the timing and your experience of whatever exists between you enough to wait for the moment rather than manufacturing one. And in the private space where no one can see what the patient adult thing is costing them, they are absolutely losing it in the best possible way, in the way that only you are producing in them.